We just got a new Avatar movie. It's a third Avatar movie, Avatar Fire and Ash. And here's the thing with those movies. They're going to make $1 billion, maybe even more than that. James Cameron is very good at making money. But as you're going to hear in the conversation that we're about to have right now, there is something that just goes a little bit beyond money, which is to say, how many times can Avatar keep remaking the first one? There's got to be a limit, right? And our critics did not hold back. They have a lot of thoughts on the ways that James Cameron is retreading some of those themes. I mean, basically, this movie has the same ending as the first one. And there's still 2 more Avatar movies to go, so the journey's not over yet. I really enjoyed this conversation. It made me think about the Avatar sort of trajectory in a different way, and I hope that you get something out of it as well. Jesse Wente's here, Sarah-Tai Black is here, Jackson Weaver is here. Hello, all of you. Nice to see you.
So good to see you.
Hello, hello.
Oh, what a time. Okay, we are obviously talking about Avatar, and I think the place to start is right here. Here's a bit of a taste.
There's something you're hiding. Tell her it is time. If your father and I do not return, you go as far and as fast as you can.
What does Dad always say?
Sully's never quits.
That's right. Sully's never quit.
The day has come.
James Cameron doesn't make small movies, right? Like everything is just kind of like at this constantly epic scale. That is a bit of the trailer for Avatar Fire and Ash from James Cameron. It's the 3rd movie in this franchise. Jackson, you have the thankless task, I would say, of trying as quickly as possible to sort of sum up, where this new sequel picks up when it comes to the story.
Yeah, 9 hours of content. Let's go. So you have Jake Sully, human in an alien body. He is basically initially fighting for the American colonial metaphor as humans come to the planet of Pandora. He needs to be in an alien body because he can't breathe the poisonous atmosphere. Bunch of stuff happens. He is now in a relationship with Tiri, the alien wife that he has taken. He has a whole family. When this movie begins, the humans initially wanted to get the metal called unobtainium. They wanted to get like the ambergris metaphor that is amrit, which is this fluid found in these whale aliens. Now they just really want to figure out how to live on this planet without dying from the poisonous atmosphere. So their whole thing is figuring out how to change their metabolism. There's a secret in one of the people living on the planet that they need to steal him and figure out how that can help them. There's also, a new fire clan, the Mengquan, which the leader is Varang, played by Una Chaplin. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of shooting. There's a lot of riding on alien beings. And that's kind of the basics, I guess. Hopefully that's enough.
It's more than enough for me personally.
Okay.
Thank you for going through all that. What'd you like about this movie?
I think it's crazy that I'm the positive one about this movie, but I'll say the things that I did like, which is, if you know what Avatar is all about, it's not about the story. That's kind of an afterthought, just as an excuse for James Cameron to showcase this big, beautiful world he's built for you, which he does once again. You get the lush water physics, which are really cool. You get a replay of some of the battles we've seen, but just bigger and better. I think we get really cool characterization for 2 characters, which is Natiri, which again, Jake Sully's wife. We also get a really cool villain in Colonel Quaritch, played by Stephen Lang. I think that's really good. Yeah. And you have things happening nonstop. That's also cool.
The idea of things happening nonstop for 9 hours is a bit of an overwhelming prospect, but also, I take your point. Jesse, a big part of the thing that draws people to Avatar, the thing that makes James Cameron sort of a noteworthy director is that, he has scale, right? Like he's like there's story and then there's also scale and cutting edge special effects and technology. And he brings all that to the movies. Literally Avatar changed some of the movies in the movie theaters that people go to. How would you rate the scale and the special effects and also the story being told in Avatar Fire and Ash?
Yeah, so I would, I think I'm probably the only one on this panel, Elamin, who had the benefit of reviewing the original Avatar movie 16 years ago on CBC radio. My instinct upon seeing this one was to just ask your producers to reproduce my review from then and replay it now.
Okay.
Because my opinion is unchanged. Avatar is retrograde storytelling steeped in Hollywood stereotypes of indigenous people, wrapped in cutting edge digital technology. Of which I have to like, I don't think it looks good. I think it looks awful. I think the CG is flat and incredibly boring. I think it's much more akin to an amusement park ride in terms of its aesthetic and its storytelling. Like there is no, we're in the exact same place at the end of this movie as we were at the end of the original movie, and we're now 9 hours into this. It's and if you and the high frame rate, which is like the
Oh my
main
gosh.
technology that's on display here, you know, and this is just so folks understand, film, and we're talking about literally now old-fashioned celluloid film
Yeah.
operated through the camera at 35 millimeter. We have to be all these qualifiers. At 35 millimeter was projected at a rate of 24 frames per second.
Right.
High frame rate or any digital technology has the capability to shoot at a much higher rate of speed.
So you literally just capture more as you're watching it. Yes.
Yeah. And so, and he's employing technology that, and then it's displayed. You can watch this in some cinemas anyway at this high frame rate. I remember this because I was friends with one of the inventors of this technology, Douglas Trumbull, who he displayed this to me back in his home studio when I went to visit him in the Berkshires in like 2016.
Flex on flex.
and-
I'll let to see it. Yes,
Sure,
continue.
and
Yes.
you know who was there was Ang Lee was mixing his war movie. At
All
the
right,
time.
with the
Same
flexes,
thing.
Jesse. With the flexes, yes.
Well,
Oh my
but
God.
my point is that it's not new technology. It's actually at this point a minimum decade old, and in fact, showing film at high frames is not new either. They used to do that with actual celluloid because it causes a different effect on the technology. It is unable, in my opinion, this technology to traverse the uncanny valley, meaning it doesn't look real. So there's never a moment in this film when you think anything you're watching is anything but a cartoon. And I don't think it's transformative. The original was transformative. This feels very not. Like, I don't think this will mean the movies will be shown like this in the future. I think the high frame rate and this style of production was always destined for theme parks. And I think that's where this style of storytelling belongs.
I just very quickly, in James Cameron's defense, you don't have to reinvent the movies more than once every 16 years. I think like once is fine. You know, I think that's a pretty decent sort of advancement, but I'll come back to that point in just a moment. I know, Sarah-Tai, you are coming off a binge watch of all three. You're like 9 hours of content. Let's go. Let's watch the first one, then the second one, and then you went into this one. So how'd you feel about Avatar: Fire and Ash?
Well, first of all, I want to go back to Jesse's evocation of everyone in the Berkshires. I'm imagining like a Real Housewives of New York version of that with Ang Lee and Jesse and everything. So thank you for giving me that image. It will get me through today. As far as watching all the avatars, what can one say? So much blue, everything's so smooth, everything's so smooth. One thing that I was actually really, really thinking about as someone who is completely new to the series is, you know, in terms of like the violence and the language of the film, not that there's a lot, but there's enough to signify that these films are directed for adults, for teenagers, for mature tweens.
Yeah.
But if that is that, why is it that its story world, its characters, the relations to one another are all so lacking in depth and in impact? And if this is, as James Cameron has said himself, like a retelling, quote in big quotes, a retelling of or reimagining of the early colonization of the Americas, why are the films so naive, so coddled, so bland, so sapless in even that minor, quote unquote, retelling of part of history, which even on paper is so incredibly urgent and so incredibly affecting? And I was also thinking of, stay with me now, Elamin, I was thinking a lot about Killers of the Flower Moon while I was watching Fire and Ash, and how, in my opinion, as a Martin Scorsese lover, he should not have directed that film. I think there's a lot of colonial violence being reenacted by that film. But there's also a few moments in that film here and there where Indigenous being and Indigenous spirit kind of breaks through that. It ruptures the screen in some way. To borrow from Black studies, it evades capture, even if only temporary, even if only momentary, in these really sparse moments. And thinking of like that stunning shot of the Osage boys running in the oil bloom, for instance.
Yeah.
There's none of that in the Avatar movies. Cameron doesn't even care to give us those moments of lived life. And I don't know why we would expect that, considering he made this like ragtag buffet of indigeneity where it's like we got Igbo, we got Maori, we've got Cree, we've got everyone's there, and it doesn't matter who they are. There's no care for specificity. and obviously there are huge differences in those movies, but also there's a little bit not, and it just feels Avatar, Fire and Ash, and the series as a whole, sorry, it feels so incredibly castrated as both a story and as a retelling of a history. And it makes me wonder what that means for us in terms of that history, of showing or telling that history on screen, for those of us still in the wake of that history watching it. I just felt there was no heart, there was no spirit, there was no soul to this film. I felt nothing. I didn't even feel anger. I didn't even feel like contrived sadness. And I'm an easy cry. I love the cinematic emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
And since I got out of the screening of Fire and Ash last night, I've just been thinking about like, what is the political function of all of that?
Okay, first of all, I want to hold on that phrase, the ragtag buffet of indigeneity, that idea of that. But basically what James Cameron is doing is a lot of invocation, a lot of folding in of history that doesn't necessarily belong to him. Like this idea of, okay, so the quote that you mentioned, I just want to give the specific quote. James Cameron has said that Avatar is a, quote, science fiction retelling of the history of North and South America in the early colonial period. This is a retelling that has also happened to gross $5 billion so far. It is the number 1 and number 3 top grossing movie of all time. The two movies that we have so far are. But we've heard a lot of Indigenous critics sort of say that this franchise has fallen short, not just in that reimagination, right, of this sort of period, but also it's also fallen short when it comes to the potential collaboration with Indigenous filmmakers, with Indigenous creatives, in terms of trying to tell that story. Where do you stand on that criticism, Jesse? The idea that James Cameron actually has a lot of latitude, a lot of opportunity to actually make that a much richer, but he has not taken necessarily that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the intent. Like, I think, again, to go back with my history with this franchise,
right?
Like, it's interesting to me that the film he now admits that it's about colonialism, and that this is now, because this was not true when I vividly remember when I gave my review, I was, I'm the only Indigenous critic that I ever knew. And I remember when I gave my review of this film on the air and the response to it, which was like rippling across the whole thing because no one had heard that. And so I think I'm glad that the films are now framed this way, that it's inescapable, that even Cameron has to admit it. But if his intent is to have some sort of reckoning with colonial history, I mean, these films are an utter failure. And I don't actually think that is the intent. To bring about language I used in my original review 16 years ago, these films are colonial fantasy. These are movies where non-Indigenous people embody Indigenous people. Literally. And become the heroes of the story. This film is not about Indigenous people. All of the central characters, save for the women, which is an interesting thing that one might really want to think about, in terms of how Indigenous women are so often the targets of colonial violence, and yet they're the only Indigenous folks really at the heart of this story. The Indigenous men, or the hero men in the story, are not Indigenous. They're all non-Indigenous people in costumes. And that is a fantasy. And not only are they in costumes, they are leaders. Like like in the first movie, Jake Sully's basically a deity. And that comes back around here where another character is basically a deity. And like, that is old school colonial fantasy. And in some ways, that is the story that James Cameron is connected to, that fantasy of it. But I got to say, Elamin, I'm sitting here today, and this is somewhat different than 2009. Yeah. Some ways and some not. We're just celebrated the 10-year anniversary of the release of the final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Yeah. And this is it's not perhaps, it is the single largest effort in truth-telling in the history of this place. Very little action has been taken to address any of the concerns that report raised. And this film does an incredible disservice to the actual history because of its lack, as Sarah-Tai pointed out, of specificity. You want to tell this story, be specific. You want to reconcile this, we need the numbers. We need to be really specific if you actually want to confront this history properly. Blue washing it like these films do so that it's all comfortable because it's all aliens, and the colonizers are positioned ultimately as the heroes and the only chance for salvation for the Na'vi, the blue folks, is just like so old-fashioned. Like, I looked up James Cameron's age. He's 71. That's about right. Like, this is a film made for my mother's generation, and my mom would have laughed at it.
Okay.
She did. I took her to it and she laughed at it.
You said a lot of stuff.
Not Mama Wente.
You said a lot of stuff that I really want to, for just a moment, explore, because I do think it's worth holding on this idea that if you have a movie like this one and you lose the thing that makes it specific. And we should say, like, over the years, James Cameron has given a lot of money to Indigenous groups, environmental causes, and particularly environmental causes tied to the well-being of Indigenous groups. But when it comes to the filmmaking, when it comes to like the storytelling that he's trying to do with these movies, when the movie is not specific, Jackson, we were talking about this right before we started rolling. It's basically Joseph Campbell, the movie, right?
Yes.
It's basically
Hero's
like,
journey.
here's a hero's journey transposed onto a hodgepodge that is not very specific. And actually, that's the thing that makes it successful. That's the thing that makes it make $5 billion, is that it is so sort of wide-ranging as a blanket that it's not trying to be specific about any of those stories. And that's why so many people can go in and go like, oh, I too am Jake Sully.
Yeah.
So there is the artistic intent that you guys are talking about, which it fails at every level. That's the thing that actually maybe makes it one of the most successful commercial vehicles for film in the last, 30 years or so.
That's why Green Book won Oscars. I mean, when you get non-specificity plus heartwarming, I'm not actually the villain narrative, you get billions of dollars, or you get Oscar awards, you get awards bait. But that's not really an excuse. That's more an explanation of what is wrong with it. This is how you make the most successful movie and the third most successful movie, by making it non-specific, by making it so general that anyone could access it and be made to feel better about it. But that is not an excuse. That is why it shouldn't exist. If you want to make a non-specific, easy to access movie, don't also root it in the American colonial story and stories of racism. Don't make it just Black like me, but shift it to an Indigenous lens, because that's offensive, and I think it's atavistic, and I think that it should not really exist in its current form. I can see the delight that you can get in that, theme park aspect, and you can get into the huge battles and stuff, and when we could just rehash this movie again and again to the point where the end of this movie is just literally the end of the first movie again, except the tree is now underwater, but everything else is really exactly the same. And I can see why you like it, and I can see why it's successful, but I don't think that excuses what, like, I kind of, in my review, which I said it was big, goofy, and forgettable. It's like this post-racism, I don't see color, sci-fi moral, in that you literally have white people inhabiting Indigenous bodies and saving all the Indigenous people. Because not great.
The more clearly you see color, the less likely you are to be that, commercially successful. Okay, I think we're going to leave it there on Avatar. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this show is called Commotion. Sarah-Tai Black is here. Jesse Wente is here. Jackson Weaver is here. And I just want to quickly switch gears from one gigantic Disney IP to some pretty significant news that is surrounding one of the biggest characters in Disney's catalog.
A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
And this'll all be mine?
Everything.
Everything the light touches.
That is, of course, The Lion King. That, first of all, just hearing that voice makes me just deeply emotional. Last week, we learned that Disney has brokered this agreement with OpenAI that could shift the way that we experience these characters. Jackson, what are the broad strokes of this deal, pal?
I mean, this is a $1 billion investment by Disney into the world of OpenAI. They're going to license over 200 of their characters for use in Sora engine, etc. That's like Darth Vader, Elsa, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, Lilo and Stitch, Ariel, Belle, Beast, Cinderella, Simba, Mufasa, the characters from Encanto, Frozen, Inside Out, more and more and more and more. You can use them in Sora, also in the Disney Plus app. Theoretically, soon there will be curated Sora videos in there. There will be kind of a push for Disney to get fan-made Disney characters also on those platforms and get them out there. They're giving all their employees ChatGPT. This is really like a melding of Disney and OpenAI to say, hey, now you can use our characters to tell whatever stories you want. And the fight that they've kind of been having with all these different AI companies has now been shifted into this is where we'll actually get to profit out of it.
Right. Sarah-Tai, this deal gives OpenAI this exclusive access to Disney properties for a year, but after that, Disney will be free to broker deals with other companies. But I'm curious if you look at agreements like this and go, this could actually deepen or diversify or even actually possibly expand the audience that Disney has. Or could it go the other direction and make people kind of go, oh, I don't feel the same emotional connection from just hearing Mufasa's voice just in passing?
I mean, I guess it depends on the fan bases of especially Disney adults. Are they the adults who are going to want integrity of the stories and characters they love, or are they adults who just want more, but they're now essentially in this weirdly cannibalistic deal with OpenAI, which at its very core is predatory towards the artists who make that very art. You know, I wonder what protections are in place for the artists who have made these characters. I wonder how long it will take for these characters to become pornified. I wonder how, you know, we saw what's his face from OpenAI, Sam Altman on Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon, when I get you, Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon, when I get you. We saw Altman on Jimmy Fallon talking about how AI could help people raise kids. It all just feels so dystopian at this point, and I don't know, the human fighting against futureless part of me wants to say no, people would demand more, but I really don't know.
Jesse, you got about a minute on this. What do you think about it?
I'm also in the I don't know camp. Like I was trying to think from a technology standpoint. Like there was all these concerns that like sampling in music might end. And it didn't. Like it didn't end anything.
That's true.
And there were tons of lawsuits that then set up a framework by which it can exist. So like maybe it allows more accessibility to these storytellings. But I would these companies and the model that they're building is I can only see it as a function to displace labor, and it's going to start with artists. And we already know in the film business that like animators and the exact folks that work at Disney are the first getting displaced. So it's hard to see through the trade-offs there, but you know, this is probably a wait and see, and I will firmly commit, just I have with all AI, to not invest any of my energy, time, or any resources at all into anything created by that. I have no interest.
With the last couple of minutes that we have left in the show here, I just want to go around the table and get a recommendation from each of you, something I should be reading or watching or listening to. Jackson, why don't I start with you, pal?
I mean, I'm usually the movie, TV, books guy, but I'm going to shift into the music chair
Ooh,
here.
let's go.
I've been loving this album, Autonomy by Elio, Canadian musician. It's pop, it's fun, and it is a little bit soothing, which is something I've really needed this year, and you might maybe need that feeling too.
I also don't get a lot of soothing recommendations from you quite
not
often.
usually,
this is new. This is new for me
Yeah.
personally. Sarah-Tai, over to you, pal. What do you got?
I just started reading and I'm really enjoying Jay Simpson's A Body More Tolerable. It's their newest book of poetry, and they're kind of working through mythology and fairy tale and this kind of really embodied feminine rage, feminine fury as a way to explore Indigenous loss and trans becoming and identity and desire. And yeah, I'm a big fan of their work in general, and I always find myself returning to poetry when I'm in need of a wake up, if I'm feeling a little bit too, to quote James Brown, buked.
Not an often invoked quote, I don't think. Okay, Jesse Wente, over to you, pal. What do you got?
Yeah, perhaps in keeping with today's themes, I want to recommend a book by Laura Hall, an academic, called Bloodied Bodies, Bloody Landscapes, Settler Colonialism and Horror. It's a book I greatly enjoyed. I did blurb it, so my name's on the cover, which is I get nothing from it, but it's a book I waited my whole life to read, and I think it's really worthy of looking at.
I gotta say, we had Laura on the show, I think maybe a month and a half ago or so, and the minute that she just started speaking about it, I was like, oh, I desperately need this book, and it is now sitting on my desk. And the minute that I leave this, I'm gonna go start reading it. But I appreciate your time, all three of you. Thank you so much for doing this. We're probably going to do this again, when Avatar 4 comes out and then
5.
Avatar 5 comes out. Okay, I see a couple people are off-boarding the train, and that's all right with me. Okay, thank you so much for your time, you guys. I really appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Jesse Wente is a current storyteller in residence at Toronto Metropolitan University. Sarah-Tai Black is a freelance film critic whose work shows up at the Globe and Mail right here on Commotion. And Jackson Weaver is a senior writer at CBC Entertainment in Toronto. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Hey, I hope you have a great day. I hope that whatever movie you end up seeing this weekend, I hope it fills you with delight. All right, talk to you soon.